Hey, it's your boomer consumer. Are we audiophiles a weird bunch? Are we different than other types of collectors and people with hobbies and anybody else? This is a question asked by Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews, who I think is doing a great job. I've been watching most of his videos. Most of it is geared towards record collecting and his take on various albums and releases. Anyhow, the link to the video I'm referencing is in the description down below. So let's start with just some of the opinions that he has pointed out that non-audiophiles might have, any questions that they may have. And the first item on the agenda is, why do you audiophiles, he's talking, I think, particularly about record collectors, why do you buy so many copies of the same record? Isn't one good enough? Well, if you're an audiophile, you're trying to pursue getting the best sound that you can. And quite frankly, some copies don't sound as good as others. So it's, again, like collecting anything else. You certainly go with what your budget allows. But if you can afford something in a better condition than something else, or something of better quality than something else, then to me that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm a music buyer, not a collector. In other words, my goal is not to have my records or my CDs as any kind of investment financially, but kind of in my mental health. We'll get into that in just a minute. But yes, record collectors, CD collectors, audiophiles want the best material that they can work with. Now, another thing is, in that same vein, our obsession over audio quality. Well, Kenny, that's what makes us audiophiles, isn't it? Whether you're a book collector or a classic car collector, you want to get the most out of your audio dollar. And we want the best sound that we can get. Recently, I had a young man stop in the house, and he had never heard a true hi-fi system. He has always listened to his music with a phone and his earbuds. And so when he's seen all this gear sitting around, I gave him a demonstration. And just the sheer look on his face was nothing short of amazing. He had never heard such high quality audio in his life. This is according to what he said. He was simply amazed. This is just something most people aren't exposed to. But once they are, well, I think the bug hits them. I think it's our mission to show people, look, earbuds and phones are nice and $20 Bluetooth speakers are okay, but there's nothing like that's going to beat the sound of a well put together hi-fi rig. Now, because he's a record collector, he has multiple turntables. Well, they serve a purpose. One is, I think he's setting up for mono pressings, and the other is for his normal stereo stuff. No different than other hobbies. I'll give you an example. I have a brother-in-law who's into woodworking in a big, big way. I'm not. But I got to look at his basement. It's full of gear. And he had these router bits. And he's explained to me, this router bit is for this purpose, this one's for that purpose. Well, it's the same thing with audiophiles. We buy gear that serves a particular purpose, whether it's a preamp, amplifier, speakers, etc. They all have a job to do. And we try to get the best that we can afford, and they serve a purpose. Another point he brought up was, why do we spend so much on gear? And that's a great question. And to anybody that's a non-audiophile, why do we do that? Well, again, audio is just not my only hobby. I love classic cars. And finding the right part for a classic car can be an endeavor like you cannot believe. I could go on all kinds of stories about trying to rebuild a classic 1930 Model A quarter-ton pickup truck and just finding the mirrors and you name it. And that stuff can cost a lot of money. But we wanted a truck that we could take to car shows. Well, in the world of audio, we want the highest quality sources and components that our budgets allow. So it's all relative. You can spend a few $100s on an integrated amplifier. You can spend tens of thousands on an integrated amplifier. So we go with what we can afford and we get the best that we can because we want ultimately to have the best sound that we can. Another thing Kenny pointed out was, and again, this goes back to record collecting, but the labor that's involved with records. And I am building a record collection, a vinyl collection. And yeah, it is very labor intensive. But some of us, and I think most audiophiles that are into record collecting, find the whole thing very relaxing. They enjoy cleaning the records, cataloging the records, putting them in protective sleeves, storing them a certain way, brushing the records, all that kind of thing is part of the fun of the hobby. So it's that interaction with your music, I think, means a lot to audiophiles. But to somebody that's so used to just hitting a button on their phone and getting instant gratification, it makes no sense. But there's a reason for it, and I think that's part of the enjoyment of the hobby that audiophiles get. Next thing is, why do we own so much physical music? Why do we have, hundreds and hundreds or thousands of records and CDs? Well, I've been streaming music as a form of discovery, but I can tell you in my honest opinion, again, just me, that I find that the sound from a CD is as good as, if not slightly better than most of the stuff I stream. I also like the fact that I have the physical media. I own that physical media. I could sell it if I want to. I can look at the liner notes. I can look at the lyrics. It just brings me that much closer to the music, and there's kind of a pride and sense of ownership. When you stream, and that's the only way you get your music, you don't have any ownership, all right? What you have is a playlist. And it's just like having Netflix. You might have a watch next or up and next, but you don't have the same thing as if you bought that movie or television show on Blu-ray, for example. All right. So having a catalog that you have put together for your personal taste is a very meaningful thing. No different than if you collected books, right? You can get a lot of books cheap or next to nothing and read them on Kindles and so forth, but there's nothing quite like to feel that book in your hands. So why even own CDs and records when streaming is cheap? Well, hopefully I just covered that. I think in some ways it's sonically superior to streaming. You own it, it's yours. The satisfaction of ownership. You are cultivating a library that suits your personal taste that cannot be deleted by the powers that be somewhere down the road. There's just too many reasons to go into, in my opinion, about collecting CDs and records. Here's a good one. I think Kenny said, well, why do we care so much about mastering and so forth? Well, this goes back to having multiple copies of an album. Different records are mastered differently by different people, can have vastly different sound. Again, I think we are ultimately chasing the best sounding source material that we can. Some people are better at mastering than others. If you take some CDs from the late 80s and 90s when the loudness wars began, some of them sound like trash. It just depends who's the real pro on doing the mastering. I'm not that critical on the mastering. I just know what I like, what sounds the best on the system that I got. Another thing is the terminology that we use. Well, I think every hobby has its own lingo. And if you're not into audio, then some of it makes no sense. In other words, Kenny goes on to say that to a non-audiophile, the piece of music either sounds good or it sounds bad. They don't understand terms like warmth or, north of neutral on the highs or scooped out mids, etc. We shouldn't expect them to. It's not their thing, and they don't understand what we're getting at. If they want to become into the hobby, they'll learn what these terms mean. But yeah, to the non-initiated, it does seem a bit weird. Another point was the care that we put into taking care of our collection. again, I think it goes back to that pride of ownership, that pride of being able to look at your collection, picking out a record or two or five, or whatever you want to listen to, or CDs, based on the mood that you have, what you're in the mood for. Knowing that you can sit there and open the record jacket, read the liner notes, etc., see the photos, it, I think, connects us closer to the music that we're listening to rather than just punching a button on a phone and moving on to the next track. So in conclusion, are we weird? No, I don't think so. We have our own thing as audiophiles, and unless you're interested in hearing music being reproduced in the best possible format and best possible way that our budgets permit, it makes us happy. I consider my investment, my music, and my sources that's right, I use the word investment. Not all investments are on your balance sheets and your stock portfolio. We have to make investments in our own happiness. What's the point of life if it's pure drudgery and no joy? Spend the money on things that make you happy and bring you joy. You only go around once. Well, that's it. Kenny, keep up the good work. Thanks for watching. I look forward to your comments down below. And do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. Bruce Naylor, your Boomer Consumer. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.